I've never been the type to get easily bothered by neighbors. I've lived in apartments with paper-thin walls, next to partying students, families with babies crying at impossible hours, and even a guy who swore he was a musician and practiced. Drums at 7 on Sunday mornings. I learned to filter out the outside world, to create my own bubble of relative peace. When I finally managed to buy my small, semi-detached house in this ridiculously quiet suburban neighborhood, I thought my days of forced tolerance were over. Tree-lined streets, well-kept lawns, silence broken only by birdsong or the distant laughter of children. It seemed perfect. Naive, I know. The house next to mine, a mirror image in its modest architecture, belonged to Mr. Edgar Holloway. When I moved in, he was one of the first to greet me. A man I'd estimate to be in his late 60s, maybe early 70s, thin, slightly stooped, with sparse white hair combed meticulously over a balding scalp. He always wore well-ironed button-down shirts, usually in faded pastel shades, and khaki trousers. There was an old-fashioned formality about him that seemed out of place, but harmless. He welcomed me with a firm handshake, almost surprisingly strong for his frail appearance, and a smile that... Well, that was the first thing that struck me as odd. It wasn't a warm or friendly smile. It was wide, yes, showing teeth, impeccably, straight and very white for his age, but his eyes didn't follow. They were a pale, almost watery blue, and remained fixed, analytical, as if they were cataloguing me rather than expressing welcome. It was a smile that seemed more like a mask, a rehearsed gesture that didn't reach the rest of his face. At the time, I dismissed it. I thought it was just shyness or perhaps an elderly eccentricity. "Welcome to our quiet street, Arthur," he said, his voice a surprisingly resonant baritone. "I hope you find the peace you're looking for here." Peace. Ironic, looking back. For the first few months, our interactions were minimal and perfectly normal, at least on the surface. Nods when we went out to get the newspaper or take out the trash. Comments about the weather. He tended his garden with an almost obsessive dedication. Roses mostly. Dozens of them of all colors, perfectly pruned, without a single weed in sight. His lawn was an impeccable green carpet. Mine, not so much. I worked mostly from home as a freelance graphic designer, which meant my hours were flexible. But often, I was immersed in projects late into the night. My office window looked directly onto Mr. Holloway's side garden. At first, I found it comforting to see his living room light on late too, a kind of silent companionship in the quiet of the suburban night. The first truly strange thing happened about 3 months after I moved in. One morning, I found my recycling bin tipped over, its contents scattered across my lawn. Papers, plastic bottles, cans. Annoying, but I figured it might have been an animal, a raccoon or a stray dog. I cleaned everything up, grumbling. The following week it happened again. This time I noticed something peculiar. The items weren't just scattered, they seemed arranged. The aluminum cans were crushed in a specific way, almost ritualistically. The papers were torn into uniform strips. There were no signs of teeth or claws. It was too methodical to be an animal. A discomforting feeling began to form in the pit of my stomach. I looked towards Mr. Holloway's house. The curtains were drawn, as always during the day, but I felt, with an inexplicable certainty, that he was there, watching. Then, small objects started appearing on my back porch. First, a particularly vibrant blue bird feather, then a smooth grey stone, the kind you find in streams. One day it was an old mother-of-pearl shirt button. They weren't valuable things, just strange. Left there without any note, usually in the middle of the night. I asked other neighbors if anything similar was happening to them. No one had seen anything. Mr. Holloway, when I ran into him a few days later while he was pruning his roses, mentioned casually, "I see you enjoy collecting interesting things. Arthur, that stone that appeared on your porch the other day was quite lovely, don't you think?" The blood ran cold in my veins. How did he know about the stone? I hadn't told anyone. And the way he said it, it wasn't a question, it was a statement. The frozen smile was there, fixed, while his pale blue eyes pierced me. From then on, the feeling of being watched became almost constant. When I was in my office, I'd feel a prickle on the back of my neck, as if eyes were fixed on me through the window, even if I couldn't see anyone. I started hearing noises at night, light footsteps on the gravel of my side entryway, the soft click of my back doorknob, as if someone was gently testing it. Every time I rushed to the window or the door, there was no one there. The street was deserted, bathed in the weak, yellowish light of the street lamps. I began to doubt my own sanity. Was work stress getting to me? Was I imagining things? I tried to rationalize. The neighborhood was old, houses made noise, the wind could carry strange sounds, but the regularity, the specificity of the incidents, it was hard to ignore. I started paying more attention to Mr. Holloway. I noticed his lights really did stay on, very late, often even later than mine. When I went out for an early morning run, I'd sometimes see him standing at his living room window, motionless like a statue just watching. If our eyes met, he wouldn't look away. He'd just hold my gaze, and that unnerving smile would slowly spread across his face. There was no warmth, no humanity in it. It was the smile of a predator assessing its prey. One day, I came home from grocery shopping to find the back door unlocked. I was absolutely certain I had locked it when I left. My heart hammered. I entered cautiously, calling out, "Hello?" Silence. I searched the house, room by room, clutching a fireplace poker. Nothing seemed out of place, nothing had been stolen. Except for one thing. A photograph of me with my parents, which sat on my bedside table, was gone. There were no signs of forced entry. Whoever had come in either had a key or knew how to pick the lock without leaving a trace. Panic began to overwhelm me. This wasn't just strange anymore, it was threatening. I went to the police. I explained everything, the trash, the objects. On the porch, the noises, the unlocked door, the missing photo. I mentioned my suspicions about Mr. Holloway. The officer, a burly, tired-looking man, listened patiently, but his skepticism was palpable. "Look, son," he said, sighing, "I understand you're scared, but we don't have anything concrete, no signs of forced entry, no witnesses. Your neighbor is an elderly gentleman, lived here for decades, never caused any trouble. It could just be a series of unfortunate coincidences. Maybe you forgot the door unlocked. The photo might have fallen behind the dresser." He suggested installing security cameras, reinforcing the locks. He promised a patrol car would drive down the street more often, but made it clear they couldn't do much more without solid evidence. I left the station feeling helpless, invalidated, and even more frightened. I was on my own now. I followed the officer's advice. I installed new, more robust locks on all doors and windows. I put up discreet security cameras covering the front and back of the house, connected to a system that recorded and alerted me to any movement. I felt a little safer, but also like a prisoner in my own home. I started checking the recordings, obsessively. At first, nothing, just squirrels running across the lawn, the mailman, myself coming and going. Then one night, a motion alert from the back camera woke me. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding in my chest. The black and white night vision image showed a figure standing at the edge of my yard, partially obscured by the shadows of a large bush. The figure was motionless, facing my house. I couldn't see the face clearly, but the silhouette, the posture. I knew it was him, Mr. Holloway. He stood there for almost 10 minutes, just staring. Then slowly he turned and walked back towards his property, disappearing from view. That was the confirmation I needed, but also what I feared most. He was actively watching me, trespassing on my property during the night. I showed the recording to the police. This time they took it a bit more seriously. 2 officers went to talk to Mr. Holloway." I watched from my window, hidden behind the curtain. I saw Holloway greet them at the front door, his frozen smile firmly in place. He gestured calmly, seemed to be explaining something. The officers were there for about 15 minutes, then left, gave a brief wave in my direction, and drove off. Later, one of them called me. "Mr. Holloway said he had insomnia and went out for some air," the officer explained, the weariness back in his voice. "He said he might have accidentally strayed a bit too close to your property line in the dark. He apologized for any alarm he might have caused, said he greatly admires how you take care of the house." Admires how I take care of the house. That sounded so sinister coming from him. The police said they warned him about trespassing, but again, without more, their hands were tied. After the police visit, things went quiet for a while. Too quiet. Mr. Holloway continued his gardening routine, but avoided my gaze. The frozen smile vanished, replaced by a neutral, almost blank expression that was somehow even more unsettling. The objects stopped appearing on my porch. The nightly noises ceased. I started to wonder if maybe the police warning had worked. Maybe it was over. But a part of me, a part that had learned to distrust the silence, knew it was just the calm before the storm. I was wrong. He hadn't stopped. He had just gotten smarter. About a month after the camera incident, I started noticing small things inside my house. Things that didn't make sense. A book I was sure I'd left on the coffee table would reappear on the bookshelf. The coffee mug I'd used that morning was washed and put away in the cupboard, though I had no memory of washing it. Tiny changes, almost imperceptible, designed to make me doubt my own memory, my sanity. I checked the cameras constantly. Nothing, no forced entry, no sign of him. How was he doing it? Did he have a copy of my key? Had he managed to disable the cameras temporarily? The paranoia returned full force, more suffocating than ever. I barely slept. I lost weight. My work began to suffer. I lived in a constant state of high alert, jumping at every noise. The final confirmation came in a mundane and terrifying way. I was having trouble with my Wi-Fi and needed to check the modem, which was located in the small attic space above. My bedroom. I pulled down the folding ladder and switched on the dim light. The attic was low, dusty, filled with old boxes and insulation. As I searched for the modem, my foot kicked something on the floor. It was a small pile of cigarette butts, and next to them an old dusty sleeping bag and a few empty water bottles. I froze. I didn't smoke. No one had ever smoked in that attic. Someone had been up here, hiding. For how long? I looked down at the dusty wooden floor. There were faint, almost erased scuff marks leading to a dark corner, behind some large boxes. Heart in my throat, I approached. There was a small hole cut into the wooden floorboard, disguised by a loose plank. I peered through it. The view hit me like a punch to the gut. The hole looked directly down into my bedroom, onto my bed. He hadn't just been watching me from outside. He had been inside my house in the attic, watching me sleep, watching me live, for God knows how long. The faint smell of must and old tobacco I sometimes caught upstairs. It wasn't the old house. It was him. Panic engulfed me. I stumbled down. The ladder slammed the attic hatch shut and dragged a heavy piece of furniture to block it. I called the police again, my voice trembling. I told them about the attic, the hole, the evidence. This time they came fast, 2 cars. They went up, saw the evidence. They immediately went next door to Mr. Holloway's house. They knocked on the door. No answer. They knocked again, harder, announcing they were the police. Nothing. Finally, they broke the door down. I watched from my window, hands shaking uncontrollably. The officers entered his house. They were inside for a long time. The whole neighborhood seemed to be holding its breath. Lights came on in neighboring houses. Finally, one of the officers I recognized came out of Holloway's house and walked over to my door. His face was pale, his expression unreadable. "Arthur," he began, his voice low, "the house is empty." Empty how? I asked, not understanding. Did he run off? The officer shook his head. Not empty of people, empty of everything. There's no furniture, no clothes, no food in the fridge. The cupboards are wiped clean. There's not a single personal belonging anywhere. It's like nobody has lived here for years, I gaped at him. But that's impossible. I saw him every day. The garden, the roses. The garden is immaculate, the officer admitted. But the house, it's a shell. There isn't even dust. Where furniture should be. And there's no sign of Mr. Holloway. No sign he's been here recently, except maybe for the gardening tools outside. What about my things? I asked, remembering the photo, the small alterations in my house. My parents' picture? We didn't find anything of yours in there, he said gently. Nothing to link you to him, except for the fact that you were neighbors. The police conducted a wider search. They checked records. Edgar Holloway existed, or at least he had. He'd owned the house for over 30 years, widowed, no known children, but recent records were sparse. No one seemed to have seen much of him in recent years, except for immediate neighbors like me. It was as if he'd become a ghost long before he physically vanished. He was never found. No leads, no body, no bank account activity. Edgar Holloway simply evaporated. His house stood empty, eventually sold by the bank. New neighbors moved in, a young, noisy family who filled the house with life and laughter. They know nothing about Mr. Holloway, about the frozen smile, about the hole in my attic. I still live here. I couldn't afford to move. I reinforced the security even further. I filled the hole in the attic with concrete, but the feeling has never completely gone away. The feeling of being watched. Sometimes, late at night, when the suburban silence settles, I swear I hear footsteps just outside, or catch a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, a shadow in the neighbor's window that disappears too quickly to be sure. My parents' photograph never reappeared. The worst part is the uncertainty. Where is he? What did he want? Was he just a lonely, disturbed old man who went too far, or was he something else? His house was empty, utterly empty. How did he live there for months watching me, maintaining that facade with nothing inside? It was as if the house itself was an extension of his hollow, predatory self. Sometimes I find myself looking at the roses the new neighbors inherited, perfectly tended as always. And I wonder if he's still around, somewhere, hiding in the shadows, waiting. Or maybe he was never really there at all, just a manifestation of the sinister quiet of this place. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And I know Mr. Holloway's frozen smile is burned into my memory, a constant reminder that true horror often hides behind the most normal facade, waiting patiently to shatter your peace. And the most terrifying thing is not knowing if he's truly gone, or if he's just found a better place to hide, perhaps closer than I can imagine.